everybody. First, I have to start with the congratulations. You had exciting news last week. Dual listed in both London, now in the US. Tell us a little bit about your moment in the sun on Wall Street.
Yeah, it was fun. I guess you get very few chances to do something like ringing the bell at the NASDAQ, so that was great. It was a big moment for us. But we've been listed and been public for about 5 years. We were listed previously in London, and now we're listed in the NASDAQ. And so it was, the way we think about it is like it's another day in a long journey to continue to build the company.
And what is Wise? Tell a little bit about Wise and why that is important to be dual listed in both areas.
So I love to do this cold. How many people know about Wise? Just curious, Paul. Okay. Yeah, about 35%. So Wise is a global technology company. We are in the payment space, particularly in the cross-border payment space. And we are actually now one of the biggest money movers for when you want to send money abroad or want to lead a global financial life. So if you're managing money in different currencies, like somebody like me is international. I've lived abroad. I've lived in the UK. I lived in India. I live in the US. So you end up managing a whole bunch of bank accounts. Wise can do that for you in one place. We moved last year $243 billion across borders. And we have, as of the public numbers, 19 million active customers globally. But the reason for the move to NASDAQ also was the US is a massive growth market for us. Even in the last 12 months, we've seen a 27% increase in just US customers sending money abroad. And this is a market that continues to grow. So we continue to invest a lot. And then the other place where we are seeing a lot of traction is specifically small, medium businesses. So as new businesses now spin up, they tend to be international from day one. You are paying suppliers abroad. You're getting paid from different parts of the world. And the Wise account really helps you manage that very well.
And with that, with this global flow of funds now, it doesn't matter if you're starting a company here in the United States, you're likely to get supplies overseas. You have this global economy, and that goes to speak to this whole notion of payment modernization.
Yes.
Yesterday, we saw the White House put out an executive order asking to find ways for the different agencies, whether or not there's impediments, and if so, what is the remedy of that? You've been tireless in this work as well. Tell us a little bit about what an EO from the president does, and also some of the legislation that Congress is maybe contemplating, like the PACE Act.
Yeah, so first of all, it was welcome news and a surprise, but we definitely welcome it. I think if you look at what's happening in the US, America's innovating in a lot of places, especially AI, but if you look at payments, I think the US has been very behind. And this is true for the last 10 to 15 years. Across the globe, there's been a modernization of payment rails, where payment rails have become instant and super cheap. But also the other modernization that has happened is that non-banks have been able to access payment rails. So if you're a payments company, not a bank, because a bank would have credit products and lend, like payments companies don't do that, there is a way to get that access. In the US, it's still not true. There's no payments charter per se. So getting that access is super important for companies like us, because then we can bring down the costs of continuing to serve our customers. And also, the modernization helps to having instant payments across the world. If you look at the G7 countries right now, 6 of them have enabled access for non-banks and have instant payment rails. The US is the only country now that doesn't have this. So I'm very happy to see the executive order from the president. I think it is time, and I'm glad to see this conversation is moving. I tell Penny I've spent the last 8 years of my life trying to figure out how to move this, spending a lot of time here too, working with different offices. So I'm glad to see this is happening. And we also supported with the PACE Act. The legislation is a starting point, and we see how that evolves. But basically, it's time that there's more competition in payments. I'll give you one more thing. So we were the first non-bank to get access in the UK, for example, which we got direct access to the payment rails there. And after that, so there were 18 providers or banks who had access around 2017. Post that, because the Bank of England and the payment system operators called FPS, they opened the access, there's now 33 providers there. And that has led to much lower costs for the UK citizens. When we got direct access, we dropped prices by 20% immediately. And that's the kind of impact you can have when there's more competition and access.
And one of the issues that is also topical here in Washington is the use of AI. I'm curious, as you know, as WISE looks at it from both an operational and from actually a product improvement, how are you all using AI, and what is the impact, especially to a workforce?
Yeah, so I mean, I think everybody's already seeing the impact of AI probably in your own daily lives. It's a transformation technology. And we're seeing the value of that even in how we run our business. So one of the examples I'll give you is already we launched something called a WISE Assistant, which enables people to, when they have a question, they can come in, on the app and interact to get questions solved. And almost 50% of our responses are now being handled by LLMs. And so you can easily throw LLMs at a problem and have responses, right? But most of them can be garbage. What you want is the tuning such that the quality of the responses are really good too. So that's why we've been careful in how we roll this out. But now we are seeing the technology evolving in the training data that we've got. Of these 50%, all the resolution is better than what a human would do. That is starting to change. And we started seeing this in the last 6 months. Same thing around like when we are a global technology stack. Like the key thing I think previously was mentioned too, the newer companies in this space, we've built everything from the ground up to have a global technology stack. Versus when you usually work with a bank, like I'll give you an example, if you were to move countries from here to let's say Australia for work, you may be banking with the same bank, but you will use a different technology stack. You will get different username passwords, different cards issued. Like that's not how most of our companies work. But this allows us to then, because we have one stack, we are able to look at all the data and use AI on training to make sure we can handle financial crime operations better and make sure we are fighting scams and fraud much better, because the data helps us make better machine learning models.
And speaking of the fraud issue, it's often said faster payments means faster fraud. And would love for you to speak to that, especially now we're in a day of AI, and they're like, it's just being fueled even more so by this, new AI tools that are being made. You strongly dispute this. Would love your thoughts on faster payment equals faster fraud.
So I dispute it because I have data, and I have lived this life for the last 9 years, building the technology and integrating into faster payment systems. So WISE is now integrated into 8 instant faster payment systems around the world. We recently did Brazil and Japan. So we're the only company that has this wider network. And we don't see increase in fraud. I think the question that people, the thing that people conflate is you have the technology rails and the payment system that exists, which can move money fast and cheap. Then you have to put processes and controls on top. So for example, biometric login if you use your iPhone, it's much more secure than if you were doing username and password. So if you upgrade to biometric login, less chance of somebody else being able to spoof you. The controls and the requirements from a regulatory perspective have to be stronger on the applications versus like conflating that faster payments is equal to more fraud and faster fraud.
And one of the issues that we also have here is this open question as to who owns consumer data. And you work on a global scale. Open banking, open finance is things that occur, already almost automatic in other parts of the world. What is limiting United States here on that notion of an open banking or open finance?
So again, I can give you the perspective of because we integrated across so many countries, right? So WISE serves 70 countries. We have 80 global licenses. And in a lot of places, open bank is like table stakes now, especially in Europe. And initially it was a slow start, but we have seen the portability of data leading to consumers having better choices and ease of being able to switch products, right? So I think regulation, in this case, we have to be clear that me as a consumer owns my data. It's not the institution, right? My spending habits, my information on how I use my cards, how much I spend on groceries, all of that information is mine, not the institution's. So I should be able to port it. And I should be able to make the choice when I want to split where I put my money or move providers easily. I think we are conflating this again to say the ownership of the data is in the institutions. Actually, if you think about it, the way the industry should be thinking about it is build amazing products, which lets you, the consumer, pick the best product, right? Versus trying to build a moat around data, which seems backwards to me.
Yeah, we do seem to be fighting, fights from many decades ago, where you're on a global scale moving forward,
Exactly.
involving all kinds of technology, and it feels like the rest of the world is so far ahead of us.
Yeah.
Curious what you see as your outlook as to what really does excite you about this future.
Look, I'm actually very happy to see some of the stuff that's happening now in the US finally. As I said, our last 8 years feels like it's been a grind. So I'm very happy to see that there is an appetite for innovation and the pace at which things are finally changing from a regulatory environment perspective. We won't get everything right in the first go, but if we don't try and iterate, then we'll just be at standstill, right? So I'm happy to see instant payments finally launching in the US. RTP and FedNow, their limits are still very low, like $5,000 to do instant payment, like seems very low. But generally, I'm seeing the direction of travel. I'm super excited about the PACE Act, also the EO yesterday. It just seems like there's an environment where regulators and industry are finally talking. And hopefully we'll have a much more modern payment system for both domestic and cross-border payments.
Thank you, Harsh.
Thanks a lot.